Okay, thank you. Hello. My name is Art Veal, and I want to welcome you to the first of hopefully many podcasts. I decided to do these because I had some information that I want to share with the world, and I thought, what better way than to share it through podcast so that everyone would have a chance to get the most out of it. Today's podcast, this is the inaugural podcast. Today's podcast, I'm going to talk about why do we rent? Um, Let me give a little bit of background. I've been a landlord for the last 20 years, and I switched to rent to own housing. I help families buy homes that they were renting at one point, and I've helped families that had horrible credit, horrible income, horrible down payment, and I still help them buy a house. And over these years, I've learned a lot of different lessons and things that might be beneficial to others. And if you're not involved with me directly, then there was no other way to share that information. So that's why I created this podcast as a way to share some of the information that I get and to help families and people realize that they're not so far out there. And a lot of people go through the same problems. This is just going to be a short podcast to kind of test the waters and get things going. Um, Today, I'm going to talk about, in general, what do tenants or people that rent expect from their rental property. And when I say what do you expect, I'm very specific. We all know that when you rent a apartment or a house from a landlord, you expect to get a reasonably quality place to live, and you expect to be able to rest your head there and live there comfortably and not have too many problems. And that's relative because some people do have a lot of problems. But I'm going to pose the question, what do you get besides a place to lay your head from your rental property? When you're renting something out from someone, what other benefits do you get? Now, I personally, as a landlord, I was a renter for years before I became a landlord. But as a renter, I never really expected much from my landlord or from the people that I was renting from. Um, I felt as long as they took care of the place and made sure it was clean, then they were doing their part. And as long as I made my rent payments, I was doing my part. And that was pretty much the end of our relationship. It wasn't until years later when I started doing rent to own that I started to look at other benefits that a tenant can receive from a landlord. And a lot of times, sometimes the benefits are directly, the landlord purposely sets up these benefits to make their rental more appealing. But other times, the benefits are kind of indirect and you don't see them till later. Let me just give you an example, it'll make it easier. For example, um, when people are in one of my properties, one of the benefits is that the way we collect rent, our rent history is reported to their credit. And not just reported to their credit, we keep their rent history and we use that rent history to help them buy a home when they're ready. And I think that's something that most people should come to start expecting of their landlord. If you're someone who pays your rent, and I know how sometimes it's a struggle if things happen or bills come up that you didn't expect, and you pay your rent every month. If you're paying your rent, you should be getting more benefit than just a place to lay your head. You should be getting the benefit of showing that payment history to a lender so that you can eventually buy a house. Now, I realize not everyone that's listening to this wants to buy a house right now. But one thing I'll tell you, the same way I told a lot of my tenant buyers that didn't think they wanted to own a house at the time, it's better to have something that would help you buy a house when you don't even want to buy a house than to not have it so that when you need to buy a house, you don't have it. So what I mean by that is if you're going to make this payment, these payments to this landlord and keep this payment history, you might as well get the benefits of that payment history getting you in position to be able to buy a home. That way, if you decide to buy a home, you're that much closer to meeting your needs. And if you decide not to buy a home, then that's fine too. But you've got this payment history that can benefit you and help you. So I think that's one of the things that tenants should start to expect and want from their landlords. They should expect that payment history to be reported someplace, whether it's to the credit bureau or through an escrow company, something that allows them to show every month that they pay consistently. Now, I know some of you are saying to yourself, well, I can just save my receipts. Yeah, you can, and that's fine. But in this technology-driven world, and we do everything by computer and electronically, why do you have to save your receipts? Sometimes some of these lenders don't even accept your payment receipts because they don't know that the landlord actually received the money. So, in my opinion, I think that's a benefit that landlords should offer to tenants. Is something that's above and beyond just renting the apartment. Another benefit that I think that landlords should offer, or that people should come to expect, I guess I should say, tenants should come to expect, is I think there should be better communication between landlord and tenant. Um, we communicate better in every single way that we have nowadays. We communicate by text, we communicate by Facebook and social media and all these other things. And when it comes to landlording and comes to managing your rental, a lot of people still have to call up their landlord and wait for them to return a call and everything else. Um, and it's very much the process hasn't changed. If I have a problem with my rental and I need to get it fixed, I would much rather text you in real time and say, hey, this isn't working, and then get a text instantly back. And that way I'm not interrupting your day, but at the same time, you can know that something needs to be done, and you can let me know. I will know that you're either handling it or you're going to send someone to handle it or whatever it is. I think text messages and easier communication should be an expectation of any tenant. I think it's almost something you should ask. If I have a problem, how do I get in touch with you? And if they say just give me a call, um, and I would ask, I would be very straightforward and say, well, what if I have a problem in the middle of the night and you know I call and I get the voicemail? Is there any way to get immediately in touch with you, like text message or something like that? Um, just because it's in this day and age that we live in, I think that's something that we should come to expect as tenants. And so, last but not least, so I think that tenants should start to expect their landlords to help them, or at least the place that they're renting from to help them advance financially. And what I mean by that is, if you're in the upper income levels as a tenant, then maybe this isn't for you. But if you're like most tenants, most of the people that I've dealt with for my rental properties have been people that were lower to moderate income, and they could use help to financially do better. They would like help. And so I think there should be some sharing of information, or at least a way to access information so that you can learn to better yourself financially. I think one of the best wealth generators of our time is real estate. It's only second to, I believe, insurance, and it might not, I believe real estate is first and insurance is second. And so if real estate is one of the biggest wealth generators of our generation, then I think that as a landlord, and I think as a tenant, you should want your landlord to provide you with something that can help you move toward buying or owning your own real estate, or at least improving your finances so that you can, if you decide to pursue real estate in the future, you have that option. I think that now, my opinion is that you should be able to access information or access maybe a help or assistance with credit repair, or basically something to move you forward so that when you leave this rental, you're better off than when you started. I know that that's not a requirement of a landlord, and some people might think that, no, I don't need that from a landlord. I'll do all of that stuff on my own. But if you're spending a good chunk of your income every month on your rental, shouldn't they give you something? Shouldn't you almost want something more than just the bare minimum? The bare minimum is a quality place. When I rent something, I expect it to be of a certain quality. And so that's an expectant. Shouldn't there be something more that you get beyond that would help you better your life. And I think that you should look for services or management companies or something that offer you more than just a rental. Now, again, this is just my opinion, but I would love to hear your comments and your thoughts on this. If you, or even if you do get something extra from your landlord or from your rental company that you're using, I'd love to hear about it, and I'll talk to you about it on the next podcast. Till then, I wish you the best, and this has been Artville. Hope to hear from you soon. Bye.